Good morning, and thank you for joining us this morning for our Pocatello City Council study session. We'll go ahead and get started. Ruth, could you please call the roll?
Yes, sir. Adamson? Here. Gray? Brown?
Here.
Johnston?
Here.
Moore? Orr?
Here.
Black?
Here. Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 2 is the library board update. Representatives from the library board will discuss the goals and projects as well as council's policies and expectations.
Oh, 3 of us.
And Eric, if you want to go ahead and just sit right here to the side there.
Sure.
That would be great. Good morning.
Good morning. I am Sandy Shropshire. I'm the chair of the library board, and I'm joined here with 2 of our members, Jay Bingham to my right, and to my left, Sharon Ray. Sorry,
That's okay.
Catherine. Sharon is one of the...
We were just talking about Sharon.
We have 2 members who are not able to make it this morning, Sharon Manning and Chuck Orr. Okay. And you have before you a report that I prepared that talks a little bit about what the library is. Before I get into that, I'd like to talk a little bit about what the library is not. I guess you could say it's not your grandfather's library anymore. I am an employee of the ISU library, and I know what we see in the academic world, and I know that the public libraries see that as well. We see the use changing. We see use not going away, but changing. The digital materials that we buy and that Marshall Public buys is licensed material. It's not available to just anyone on the internet. It is controlled, accessed, purchased, and troubleshooted by library staff. Certainly there is book circulation, but a lot of the use is changing to digital, and that means keeping up with machinery, having staff who understand how to diagnose network problems or PC problems or what have you. And it's a gathering place. Citizens of Pocatello of all ages make use of your library, from youngsters up to senior citizens. This library staff puts on programs adjusted to a particular age group and sees the results of reaching out to all Pocatello citizens. Okay. A trend I'm aware of across a lot of the country is that the only computers that some folks have use of is in their public library. We see that reflected in the fact that use is up at computer stations. And I think that's something that's important to keep in mind. Okay? People are looking for jobs using those computers. They're improving their skills using those computers, taking advantage of the library's books and digital material to improve their lives. Now I'd like to change a little bit and talk about this Marshall Public Library and what is going on right now. This is the sheet I put before you. There are lots and lots of statistics that are gathered, that are kept, that are reported to the state about library activities. I've selected a few of them to share with you this morning. I've come up with some monthly averages over the year that is the last complete year versus what those same monthly averages are for the current year so far. And I draw your attention to the items that are up. They're up in a lot of areas in the nature of what I was just talking about. Circulation desk contacts, reference desk contacts, conference room users. That's people in an average month making use of a conference room in Marshall Public Library. Okay. I don't need to walk through every single number because that would be insulting to your intelligence, but I will present this to you. I also would like to draw your attention to the figures that are down. Not reaching as many people as the library was last year on an average monthly basis. I submit to you that that is a reflection of the decrease in staff that the library has experienced. I would also like to put this in the context of the state, all the public libraries in the state. The state is good enough to compile these on behalf of the citizens, and I draw your attention to some of those figures. Of the 6 largest public libraries in Idaho, which Marshall is one, has the highest base of its population holding a library card. So there's interest. That's demonstrated interest in this library. Also, they are doing well with the money that you do give them. They are under the state average in operating expenditures per capita and above the average in circulation. That is my remarks. I would be happy to take any questions that you may have. Yes?
Mr. Mayor, if I could address Sandra. The library, since I've had the opportunity to be the liaison, has increased in value in my mind. With the 4 of you, would you share with this group what you think are some of the most significant happenings for the citizens of Pocatello as a result of our library? Is that too tough a question?
No.
I'm so impressed with what you're doing.
Jay, would you like to?
Well, I think the most impressive thing about our library is the staff. The staff is responsive in several ways to the public. And the first way they're responsive is knowing where to go. I had a question, and I couldn't figure it out, and I did it over the phone, trying to access the EBSCO site. And within 2 minutes, Amy had the response for me, and I was at home on my computer. I accessed it, and it's just that quick. I mean, they're very knowledgeable, and they're out. They're there for us, and they maintain that professionalism. And the years that I've been going to the library, and it's probably 40 years, it has never decreased. It's always increased. They train themselves on with new technologies all the time, and they're very, very good about sharing that knowledge with the public. Also, our circulation is amazing to me. We raise $3 in town here, and I can remember every week going to the library and probably checking out 60 books. And we were just a line of people doing that. There were literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds during the month that would do that. And those books always got cataloged back in the right place. They were just, so the professionalism of our staff just amazes me, and I'm proud of them. I am glad to be part of this library board because of them.
Thank you, Jade.
I don't know if any of you know, but I'm a former law librarian. I was a law librarian for 20 years for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. Retired early, came up here. I'm working for ISU now. And I come from a community before I moved up here that was much larger, had a larger tax base, had a main library and a lot of branches. And they were wonderful. They did a great job. But I have to say, truly and honestly, that the library here does far exceeds the outreach that they did. And they do it with much less. if you know library people, we're very giving people. We care about doing for others, and we're there to help. We're there to make a difference, and it means a whole lot to us. And so I just want to say that, I mean, the staff is wonderful there, and they're doing it, and just because we're on this side, that I'm on this side rather than out with the patrons anymore. Our heart is there to give to, and the commitment is there to give them the best that we can give them, to make a difference. There are people in this community who are out of work. There are others who have other needs that we can connect them with the people that they need to talk to get their problems solved. And I think as a whole, you know, everyone is very approachable, so it's not a scary place to come. If there's someone who, you know, has a different personal background than maybe we would have, they can come in and ask whatever question they have. We'll help them get whatever information they need. And it's not a scary, intimidating thing. And I think that's really important too. And I just want to reiterate our commitment, also Eric's commitment and the staff's commitment to do that, because it's there and it's very, very real. And we just appreciate everything that you do to help us. So thank you for that.
Mayor, your service and what the library does is greatly appreciated. There was comments you made that contacts were down. Is that what you said?
Yes, on the outreach programs.
Okay, on the outreach. As far as circulation desks, the upper part of that.
Those are all going up.
Those are
You're
going
up.
up. Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry if that
Okay.
wasn't very clear.
All right, thank you.
Eric, I really want to hear from you.
That's fine. I've been known to talk on occasion. I guess what I'm most proud of is how this library has become not just a box of books. If you haven't been to the library for some time, it's not the library you know.
That's true.
It really has become a community center. And that allows a whole variety of resources to be made available to the citizens of your community. But beyond the resources that we have physically, they've talked about our staff. Our staff, you know, they're not just warm bodies at their desks. They're experts at a variety of different things. So the added value beyond a Google search or an Amazon order is that you've got that expertise at your beck and call. And I would hope that those kind of things would be seen as valuable by the board, that we need support for. Right now we're down a couple of full-time positions. And we also have one of our supervisors just left for a job in Vancouver, Washington, and one of our lead librarians is on maternity leave. And so in our busiest time of the year, summer reading, where we have 1,000 extra people that are coming through the doors, it's a challenge right now, but we will always rise to it. I'm amazed at the way my staff makes optimal use of what it has to work with. They make excellent use of the resources. And so as you assign resources to the library, know that they will be used well.
I've got one more question. I noticed that your conference room use is up approximately 35%.
Yeah.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, it is simply demand. I think more and more and more people are seeing this place as not just a box of books. It is a community center. And so we have, if you looked at the calendar that Christy keeps, my administrative assistant, that she keeps on her desk, it is packed. And we have the main room in the old part of the building. We have the children's corner, which gives choose for some things. And we even have the Friends a couple of years ago bought a cubicle sort of thing that's next to the reference desk that can be used for meetings. And I'll tell you, it's a struggle to get more people in there because it's packed morning to night every time. The community really finds value in that. I don't know that there's any particular increase in numbers, an explanation for it, other than more people are knowing about it. And we're doing a pretty good job of reaching out and letting people know what we've got available to us.
Thank you.
I know over this last year, things have been a little bit frustrating and difficult as we've dealt with budgets, and I just want to express our appreciation as we've helped create some of that frustration in your ability to step up and do such a phenomenal job. The library is part of the heart of a community and its identity. And I just want to express that appreciation in the midst of that difficulty.
Thank you.
And any other comment?
No.
I just want to, I look at these numbers, 79% of Pocatello has a library card. That's incredible. Not too many cities can claim that. That's true.
No.
Obviously, it is. To Steve's point, it is a major part of our community,
Well,
and
we
it
have
is
a
the
community
heart.
that values the library, and it's clear. Steve and Lee use, the various good things. You check out, it's roughly 1/3 of a million items every year. That's a lot of stuff.
That's great.
A lot of stuff.
And that's not, and
A lot of
that's
movement.
just part of the picture. They got the rest of the picture too. So we're super proud of the efforts and the service orientation that my staff has. I think they're all happy to get paid, but beyond that, almost everybody's first priority is to serve. And boy, it's nice to run a staff like that.
It's neat because you go to the library and it's always full. You've always got people in it.
It's true.
I don't remember the last time I didn't walk into the library and it was empty. In fact, I don't know that that's ever happened. So, thank you for what you do.
We
Thank you
just
very much.
appreciate your staff.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Okay, we will move on to agenda item number 3 is Housing Authority of Pocatello update. Representatives from the Pocatello Housing Authority will discuss the authority's goals and projects, as well as council's policies and expectations.
Good morning. I'm Sunny Shaw, Executive Director of the Housing Authority of the City of Pocatello, and I have a 5-member board, but they're all super busy with their actual day jobs. So they let me, since I represent the agency, come and speak on their behalf. So typically I give you a printed report, but August is a little bit early for us to have that report ready. Since our fiscal year ends June 30th, it usually comes from the printer about the end of September. When that report is ready, I will get copies of that to you as well. But in the meantime, I've prepared a PowerPoint for you. So I know that we have a new city council member, so I put just a little bit of data on here for you so that there would be some really good understanding about the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority was created in 1968, and it was a result of Idaho Code 50-1905, which gave municipalities, cities, counties, the opportunity to create housing authorities in their jurisdiction. At that time, the leaders of Pocatello, in comparison to other Idaho cities, were really visionary because there aren't that many city housing authorities. Pocatello is one of about 5. So then what happened is after none of the cities or counties created ones for their own area, the state legislature created the Housing and Finance Agency, Idaho Housing and Finance, and they gave them jurisdiction over all of the areas that did not have housing authorities. And so that's why, for example, Idaho Housing doesn't actually operate a voucher program or public housing in our city because our city, those who led the way for us, created our own agency. We have a 5-member board that is appointed by the mayor and the city council, and then that really is the extent of what we come to the city council for because we're independently funded through either rents that we earn or through federal dollars. So I'm not here asking for money, but I always take some if those budgets ever look good. We have our current members are Karina Rores, who is our chair, Jared Marchand, who is our vice chair, Darlene Gary, Bobby Branch, and Ashley Batts. Housing authorities are required to have a resident on their board, and so Ashley Batts is a brilliant young woman who represents our residents on our board. And then I'm the director. We offer a lot of programs that people probably don't realize. We have the Housing Choice Voucher Program that I talk to you every year about. It has capacity now for 692 households in the city of Pocatello. We have public housing at Christensen Courts. It's a 72-unit elderly disabled complex. Section 8 new construction is at Portneuf Towers. Again, it's elderly disabled with 72 units. We have Section 236, which is a multifamily. They're at McKinley and at Maple, a total of 100 units. As we get down into this section, those properties at Maple and McKinley actually don't have any subsidy. The previous two do have subsidy. So people that rent at Christensen Courts and Portneuf Towers pay 30% of their income. But at McKinley and Maple, they pay the regular rent, although utilities are included. And at those properties, we are under contract with HUD, even though HUD doesn't give us any funding for them. We're under contract to keep them affordable for life of the property. I'm kind of holding my breath anxiously, wondering how long that is. We have open market rentals at Pinewood and Katz, which means the Housing Authority owns them directly and can utilize them for any purposes we see fit. And we keep them, we try to use them to meet that market that is in between those who qualify for assistance and those, the ones that don't qualify but can't quite meet rent on the open market. So we still try to keep them affordable. And recently, as you'll see later, we've purchased a house just right over here on 6th Avenue. We, this last year, took over management of 55 units of Section 8 new construction. Those are subsidized family properties at 5 locations. El Rancho, Franklin, Hawthorne, Stockman, and Swisher. That's part of the reason why my hair is turning gray. So they have been a real challenge. But that brings what the properties that the Housing Authority owns or manages to 321 units. The reason why we were a fit to manage those is because they are HUD properties, and the paperwork that you have to do each month with those, the recertifications, we already do that for the properties that we have on a monthly basis. So that's why that owner was actually referred to us by Idaho Housing and by HUD. Waiting lists. This is always something that you tend to find very interesting. For our voucher program, that's where they can rent out on the open market. That waiting list is about 3 years. So there is a real need in this community. Elderly disabled properties at Christensen and Portneuf Towers are about 6 months, and our other family properties are about 30 to 90 days. Some more statistics about that voucher program, because it really is the one that feeds into a lot of the community. With 692 possible households, that's a lot of landlords that are out there on the open market that have contact with our program. The amount, although we have capacity for 692, it's not fully funded by Congress. So they kind of give us a pot of money and say you can lease up to any of that 692 as long as it's within this pot. So what we currently have is 605. The highest that we've had this last year is about 655 on our program. So you can see we can't ever make it up to that 692 just because of funding. Currently, the average per unit cost to the Housing Authority for each household on that voucher program out in the open market is $434. So on average, a landlord that's working with our program is getting about $434 from that program. There are 684 households on our waiting list, which is kind of daunting when you think that it's 3 years. Applicants must be income eligible, and we have preferences, so they have to be in order of preference to come up on that list. Our first preference is homeless preference. That was actually created by the board about 3 years ago, and we have housed about 68 households on that homeless preference. So Pocatello does have some challenges with homelessness. Next up is elderly, disabled, or families. Those all fall into the second category, and then any others who do not meet those two criteria. Last year, our program funneled about $3.1 million into the community to landlords on the open market. So that's a substantial amount of money that has come into our community through these programs. There are a couple types of specialty vouchers. We have home ownership vouchers. So we have 3 households that are buying a home on our program. So they have to be ready to be a homeowner. They have to have had the savings that they can put a down payment on. They have to be able to get a mortgage. They have to have good credit. But just like the voucher program, that voucher can be utilized to pay part of that mortgage. What we find is the people that qualify for this program are short cycle, because they usually are on the road to independence anyway. They only usually have this voucher with this mortgage assistance for maybe 3 to 5 years, and then they're self-sufficient and they're homeowners and making that mortgage payment on their own. We also have the VASH, which is really important for our community, which is in partnership with the VA. Those are vouchers that are for homeless veterans. That number has slowly been climbing, which has been exciting for our community. This last fiscal year, we were issued 5 more VASH vouchers, which brings us to a total of 33. Those are all currently in play. We're working with people for all of those. Either they're leased up right now or they're out looking. So that's exciting. We also have a landlord rehab program that's in partnership with NeighborWorks. So landlords can come and go through NeighborWorks to apply for a rehab loan. It must be for a rental. That application is then brought to the Housing Authority, and the board decides if that's an investment that they feel like we should make or not. It does 3 things for our community. It improves the rental stock for my people that are out looking for a place to rent. It gives them better opportunities for selection. It helps landlords increase their property values, and it makes neighborhood improvements. This year we made 3 loans totaling about $58,000, and since the inception of this program, it has loaned $522,000 into the community to landlords to rehab homes. So that's a significant amount of money. This is the home that we just purchased. It's right behind this office on 732 North 6th Avenue. Currently, we're just using it as a rental, but in the long term, we would like to use it as some sort of transitional housing. I'll put a bug in your ear. People tell me it'll never happen, but I have a dream of owning that whole block and making transitional housing there. I need to strike a deal with the empties and see if they would sell me their land. I hear that won't happen, but I'm persistent, so we'll see. This last fiscal year, the Housing Authority received a National Award of Merit for our participation on the Mayor's Task Force to End Veteran Homelessness, and we also received the Community Service Award from Pocatello Neighborhood Watch for our work on the National Night Out events. Here's just a picture of a couple of those events. I'm sure that you're aware the mayor attended all of them this year, which I think is pretty impressive because there's 4 events held simultaneously at 4 different locations. And that also makes me great. We have bands, we have bounce houses, fire trucks. We invite the entire neighborhood, not just the residents of our property, because we believe in strengthening neighborhood. And so they were great events. The fire department was there, the police department was there. They were very well attended. The Housing Authority has a lot of education goals that we have, but currently we're focusing on, we have an initiative called a Book for Every Child initiative. So this is looking at ways that we can change the face of poverty in the city of Pocatello. We know that the Housing Authority will never be out of business because there will always be a need for elderly and disabled, or something happens. A lot of times, people are just a couple paychecks away from being on the other side of the desk from me. And so we'll always have business, but we believe that it's part of our responsibility to change the face of the population that we serve, so that we aren't just serving grandma and then mom and then child. We believe that we have an obligation to change that through education and reaching those children who are on our programs, giving them opportunities through education, giving them dreams that they didn't have before, and putting them in touch with resources that they didn't maybe have access before. So we have our first step is a book for every child. That's a picture of our first shipment of books that we got. We got 1,500 books for shipping only, brand new books. And we distribute those to the children on our program. Anytime a household comes in and has a meeting, they leave, every child that is listed on that application, the child does not have to be there. The parent leaves with a new book for that child, an age-appropriate book. So we're really proud of that because we believe the first step is getting books into the homes, because sometimes when parents get extra dollars with tax refunds or what have you, they're getting pressure to buy that PS4 game, and maybe there's not as many books in the homes. So we're really focusing on getting books into those homes as a first step. Going forward, you can see that our mission is we cultivate affordable housing communities and partnerships that inspire self-reliance, growth, and optimism. So that's a change from the old, we provide safe, decent, and affordable housing. Because as a community leader, we have a much larger responsibility than just the roof over the head. We have the responsibility for making sure that our seniors age in place, that they have services that they need, to make sure that the people that we serve who have mental disability are not taken advantage of financially, and to make sure that our children have education opportunities. So we have created an aggressive 5-year strategic plan, And I think that the City Council will be pleased to hear that when we took a look at creating this plan, we actually took your consolidated, the city's consolidated plan, and incorporated goals from that plan into our strategic plan. So you have a goal that is about housing and homeless and special needs opportunities. That falls into Housing Authority will expand housing with services for low-income populations. We are looking at ways that we can create transitional or project-based housing for ex-offenders. We believe that that is a large population that is going to be facing homelessness in the future, because housing, a lot of landlords will deny for criminal history, and then you're creating no choice but recidivism. And so we are looking at possible ex-offender housing. We're looking at aging in place housing and housing for victims of domestic violence. We're also partnering with the United Way to advance reading of students in targeted areas of town. The next city strategic area is to grow the number of subsidized rental units. This goes into the first strategic area. So we are wanting to develop. So if you come across land, I'll take the land. We want to develop a couple of multifamily sites that would be affordable sites like those that we already manage, that would have perhaps some sort of tax credit layering or something where the families would be able to get assistance while they're living there. We're also looking at other models for future consideration, which are housing first and housing for the mentally ill. The next area that's a city goal is suitable living environment strategies, and that goes with the next item that you see. The third item, improved livability. So we want to expand our landlord rental program. We think that $522,000 loaned to date is a great number, but we want it to be larger because the city of Pocatello has some of the oldest rental stock in the state. And so this rental program is a great vehicle for us to make repairs and get those rentals updated. We want to expand that program. We also would like to work with the city in the future and Neighbor Works to maybe look at applying for a choice neighborhood planning grant. We think that could bring good funding into the city. And we would also hope to maybe acquire and rehab and maybe put back out on the open market some dilapidated rentals. We would look at not adding to the inventory in that way, but perhaps updating them and then getting them just sold back out so that landlords could have updated properties. The next area for the city is economic strategies. We hope to incorporate that by developing new lines of business. As we all know, I've talked to you many times about how our funding is continually getting cut. You guys understand budget challenges. So we're looking at ways we can be creative to find a niche in the city that is needed that's not currently being filled. It was brought to my attention by one of the city departments that there isn't currently a good asbestos abatement company locally. So we're working with ISU to see if that is something that the Housing Authority can develop as an affiliate of the Housing Authority that would develop a revenue stream that would maybe then be able to help us further our mission to assist those in need in our community and not be as dependent on HUD dollars. Another city area, strategic area is fair housing. The Housing Authority, I am actually a certified ready-to-rent trainer, and so it has been suggested that we look at ways to offer this class that helps tenants to become better renters. Ways to offer this class 3 times a year, look for sponsors to help put that on, and then maybe market that to our landlords and let them know what the benefit would be of renting to someone who is a graduate of that class, because it's a pretty strenuous course that they would follow. Lastly, we hope to rebrand the Housing Authority as the preeminent housing agency within the city, that when it comes to any type of housing needs, that we're the ones that can be turned to. Basically, we are proud of the great work that we do, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you for the work you do. You have a great committee, and I'm interested in how that contract rentals group that you took on that's giving you gray hair, is that getting better?
Sure. No. Interestingly enough, this gentleman, I had shared with him that last year I think that we were considering taking on his properties, and he had approached us 3 years ago to see if we'd manage them because of our HUD experience, and he didn't like what I said we would do it for, and he thought he could do it for less. And as a result, he ended up with an OIG audit right after we took over, which is Office of Inspector General came in. It's the government police, and they spent a week at our office digging through his files, and quite frankly, I don't think that he is an appropriate affordable housing landlord. But we are doing our best to get those properties up to shape here in the city. Lease up is really strong. The properties are turning around in their appearance. Previously, when I went by them, I thought that they were kind of shameful for their neighborhoods. They looked trashy and dumpy, and that wasn't something that we really wanted to be associated with. I think that they're looking better. We've done a lot of evictions. We found out that we had drug issues going on, mistreatment of properties, so we've done a lot of evictions to turn that around. That OIG audit was very stressful. Finding out the repercussions that he's having to go through after it are very stressful. I think probably the only reason why he was able to keep the properties and they weren't just taken away is because he had housing authority engagement. So it'll get better.
Oh, good. Was there any discussion between your department and the Port of Trust regarding the old hospital? Or is that just too big of a project?
There wasn't discussion. At the time, it was probably too big. I have to tell you, we've had some really big board changes, as you know, and this board has a huge appetite for doing great things.
Yes.
So we want to, we would love to rehab something. We would love to make it something that would really focus on those special populations that we've talked about, because they don't have a niche and they need one. Yeah. So we weren't in that discussion, but would welcome something in the future with anyone.
Well, give my love to the board, and especially Miss Bobby Brandt. She's a sweetheart.
Yes, they're doing great work.
Any others?
Sure.
Council?
Why not?
Okay, knock yourself out then.
Could you just give us a brief explanation of the difference of services that you provide versus NeighborWorks and overlap, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So NeighborWorks really focuses on the homes that are owned. So they focus on those loans that are for owner occupied. Usually they'll bring the tenant occupied loans to us. We have an MOU with them and are partners with the tenant occupied units. So they focus on, building infill homes and selling them. They focus on regentrification of owner-occupied homes and neighborhoods. And so I do understand that they are looking at going maybe into the tax credit realm a little bit. We're looking at partnering with a Choice Neighborhoods grant, like I said a little bit. I look at us as more as specializing in, I don't like the stigma that's attached to it, but when people say low income housing, that's our specialty. And their specialty is ownership, our specialty is renting. We're very good at that.
Any other comments?
In my experience, the market rent in Pocatello has gone up quite substantially from this time last year. So I was just curious how that has affected you. I think you said 432. Is that the number that you said is your, that's your average? So I'm just curious if that has been an issue for you, or if you're still able to find enough.
And you're very well aware of the market rents. It has been a challenge because, when I talked about we have capacity for 692, but why we can't lease up to that, because as those market rents go up, it requires typically, because those tenants on that program pay between 30 and 40% of their income, so as those rents go up, we're the ones that pay that difference usually. And so that means that we assist less people because the rents are higher. Quite frankly, like everybody else, we need more funding. But we're also grateful for what we've got, and we've utilized what we've got really well. But it causes us to help fewer people. Makes that waiting list longer.
How do you arrive at your funding? Is there a formula that's based on average housing stock costs here, or something? Because we know that Pocatello has a much lower housing cost than other areas. Is that a detriment to a program like yours?
It kind of is. Yeah, it kind of is. So about 10 years ago, vouchers were funded in that, like, they would say, you can go to 692, that's what you lease up to, and we'll just make sure you're paid for that, okay? And then Congress kind of shifted and they said, wait, we need to be more fiscally responsible. We're only going to give you X amount of dollars. So what they do now is they take a snapshot in time, and usually it's your average from about July through November. And they look at how much you spent on your HAP, it's housing assistance payments. And then they're going to extrapolate that amount for the next 12 months. So they look at our usage. So even though even though our rents are lower than maybe another area, they're still going to look at their usage and give them pretty much equivalent to what they've got, give or take. Sequestration dropped us down a lot. This last year we were up a little bit. But it does have a lot to do with what you've utilized. So if you utilize more, then you get more. So that's why we really try to push as much lease up as we can, because then if we're at our highest we can possibly be, and we have reserves to float that a little bit if we need to, then that means that next year during that snapshot, it's going to be a better picture for us, and we'll be able to maybe help more people. Does that help to answer?
Yeah, and because I work with FEMA emergency funding quite a bit, and we have had severe cuts with that. We've gone from high probably of the $40-some thousand, $50,000 to $4,600 for that operation this year. And it ties into some unemployment statistics and everything, but we're not helping the employed.
No. No.
And it really has made it where it's almost not worth all the applicants putting in for the divide $4,600 in ways, and the paperwork and for government, it makes it almost counterproductive.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And it's interesting because when you talk about those cuts, I've been in housing for 16 years, and how we run our organization is based on admin fees. So we get so much each month for the work that we do. And in the last 12 years, that admin fee dollar amount has not been increased. So it's been stagnant. And then not only has it been stagnant, but then they don't fund it fully. So during sequestration, they said, we acknowledge it costs you this much to run your program, but we're going to give you 68% of that. So, we had layoffs, we had to look at insurance changes and things we were going to do. And that number still hasn't changed. They're still saying, we acknowledge this is what it costs you to run your program. And we're just having a hallelujah breakdown because they're giving us 83%. And we're just remembering when it was 68, and we're going, okay, we can do this. But it's interesting that you guys understand very well when you're in any type of government-funded industry, you don't get raises. You just don't. And so that's a real challenge, is how do we do this? And we just try to be really creative. And that is why when the board is talking about looking at untapped revenue sources that we can kind of maybe find a niche in, it's so we can bring that money into the agency, make it completely whole and self-sufficient, and staff up to the point where we can meet the needs of the people in poverty in our community. We want to put anything that we can make in excess back in to fight poverty.
Have they, has funding been delayed too? Because like with the FEMA funds, we used to get the FEMA funds right after the new budget year began. So by December we were distributing, and then the second round we could do it during what we think is the critical time of the year here, the winter. Now then we're almost a year behind. We're because of all the stuff that's happened, we're just still spending, just getting funds for this last fiscal year, and the new funds will be available, should be available on October 1st, but it's so
You'll be a year
delayed.
behind.
Yeah, we're almost a year behind there.
Our capital fund and our operating fund can be delayed. I'll tell you, sometimes the things that politicians will do in regards to poor people, I think is atrocious, because poor people don't vote, but landlords vote. And so they make sure that landlord money, that biggest chunk of our money, that $3.1 million that we're funneling into the community, is in our bank account on the 1st. There's been one time when it didn't come in until the 2nd, and they were, we don't have the reserves to cover that. Mm-hmm. They don't allow us to keep that kind of reserves. So you kind of panic. I'm hitting that send button to disperse payments, and then I'm first making sure that money's in the bank. Mm-hmm. But so landlords vote. And when you've got, 692 possible landlords in Pocatello, multiply that across the country. And if they don't get their money on the 1st of the month, Congress is going to hear. And so they do make sure that that money comes in regularly.
It's good to hear landlord politicians are that smart.
Yeah, it is. You know,
No, we
it's
won't,
sad.
right?
It is sad, though, because you think about all the people that we serve in our community that are poor that don't vote. And so they know the things they can do to them.
Any other comments? Sonny, thank you for what you do. It's an incredible job, and it's a big job, so
Thank you.
we appreciate it.
your support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on. Agenda item number 4 has been pulled from the agenda. The Arts Council will be rescheduled for September 8th. So we'll move on to agenda item number 5 is proposed city code amendments, vehicles and traffic. Engineering and street department staff will present proposed changes to Pocatello Municipal Code, Title 10, Vehicles and Traffic. The proposed changes are 1, update portions of the current code, and 2, implement a new section regarding speed limits within construction zones. An ordinance has been prepared based upon said updates, amendments for council action at a subsequent meeting.
Okay, we'll get this going. Just as a desktop.
Mayor and council members, I'm Deirdre Castillo, city engineer, and with me today I have 2 of our engineering interns, Zach Johnson, and today's your last day of being an intern, right? Zach has ISU football practice, so he'll be off on football practice, and then Security Panthy and your last day is next week, I believe, right? She's not on the football team at ISU.
Thought she might be the kicker.
You never know.
And
They
then,
might need a good running back or something.
and then Mike Neville, our traffic supervisor.
Is
so
Mike on
we're-
the football team too? Or no?
So I'd like to let the interns drive, so they can get this experience and have you ask them some questions, and then Mike and I will be here to bail them out when they can't answer something. All right.
Thank you. We're proposing some revisions and changes for the Pocatello Municipal Code, Title 10.16. And this first slide, I'll just go through these proposed revisions real quick, and then I'll expand on them in later slides. One, in the code, it says traffic engineer and a bunch of the codes, 15 to be exact. And we don't have a traffic engineer in the city, and there's no plan to get a traffic engineer in the future. So we're proposing to change that to city engineer or his or her designee. There's also 3 sections where we're going to change it to the police department. Those sections were the police department have been dealing with those sections in the past, even when we had a traffic engineer. So we're just proposing to switch it over and change the language on those 3 ordinances. The second is we're adding a no parking zone to the ordinances for Olympus Drive, so we don't have to waste some money and paint yellow lines. It's just already in the city code. So the third thing is we're proposing to change the school zone speed limit nomenclature. Fourth is we want to reduce the speed limit on Garfield Avenue. The fifth is the addition to the city code of Highland Boulevard and Kirkham Road for a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. They currently have those the signage up on the roads, it's just not in the city code. So we are wanting to add those 2 roads to the city code. The 4th or the 6th is the new South Valley Road. Huge success, and we're wanting to add the 45 mile an hour speed limit sign or speed limit ordinance to the code. And the last one is the authority for the city engineer to lower the speed limit in construction zones.
That's not currently in the code,
It is not.
so anyone that was given a citation under those circumstances is invalid.
You can plead
What are
the
you,
fifth
are
on
you
this
speaking
one.
from experience now?
You can plead the fifth on this one because we have an offender there. But it's already too late. He's already paid the bill. He should have read the ordinance first.
It was expensive.
You don't need to explain anything. We'll go ahead and continue on. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, for the first change and that we want to do is, as I said, the traffic engineer there's no longer a position for that in the city council or the city, and so that we want to change the nomenclature for that in the city code to city engineer or his or her designee, or to the police department. For the city engineer and his or her designee, there are 15 sections of the Pocatello Municipal Code, Title 10, that are affected. The majority of the traffic issues are reviewed and implemented by the traffic supervisor. So most of the things that are dealt with for these sections are dealt with the traffic supervisor. That includes the maintenance of signs and striping, load restrictions, parking prohibited, and there's a few more that he deals with. But if there's any items of concern that that require more attention, that we don't want to put the traffic supervisor in a bind, it comes to the city engineer. So that includes the speed limit changes and implementation and controversial locations of sidewalks. More for crosswalks. For the crosswalks, we're talking more about in between blocks. We try not to put crosswalks in between blocks. It's just a hazard for pedestrians, and it's hard for cars to stop there. They don't really see it or notice it. So those are the things that the city engineer will take care of. The police department, the 3 sections of the code that are affected are the restricted area permits, visitor permits, and the unlawful use of decals of permits, so fake permit, residential permits, and tags. That has been historically dealt with by the police department, even when the traffic engineer was here with the city. So we won't be really making a huge shift on that. So it's just changing the nomenclature in the city code to that, so they can deal with it. We can deal with it. So the second thing that we're proposing is the addition for the no parking zone on Olympus Drive. The Olympus Drive widening has just been completed. So as you can see in this picture right there, there is very little room to park, or absolutely no room to park on the side with to be safe and not have your car hit or being in a lane. So we want to put in a no parking zone in the city code so that we don't have to waste money on going and painting the sidewalk, all the sidewalks. It's very time consuming and costs a lot more than just putting in a few words into the city code. For the no parking zone will be all the way from Pocatello Creek to East Chubbuck Road, and that will make it able for that will be, so the police department will be able to regulate that on their basis. So.
Mayor, question.
Yeah.
On that, in that picture, it's a great picture because the west side of that road from the entrance to the fairgrounds to Chubbuck Road is county ground. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Is that going to create confusion when we have an ordinance that says there's no parking and then there's somebody parking on the west side of the...
Yeah, good point. You're right, it does switch over there, so we should say to city limits. So, yeah, good catch. Thank you. So we'll make that change in the final.
Couldn't you ask the county to do the same thing for that section road in the county code?
Well,
yeah,
nice.
they haven't finished widening theirs out completely, and then we put that little trail connection in there, and there's like a little swale. But it's all designed to be widened out at some point.
Because I'm assuming right now during some type of event, there could be people parked there on that west side by the event center, possibly.
There could, like, if it's in the county area, if
Right.
there's space to pull off into the gravel. I don't think there's anything that says that they can't, unless the county wants to put up a sign.
From that white line there looks like there's a fair distance. And again, parking on a little bit of grass doesn't seem to be a problem with most people. So.
Yeah, well, the issue though, you have a curb right there. Curb and gutter right there along the west side there. I mean, there's really no room to park, but it's a good idea to talk to the county to get it done, because
or at least put that in.
On the north end of it, they've got big rocks that you would be pulling into, so nobody's going to do that. And then you're going to have that curb you have to go over to park on the greenway path there, and so I think it's a good catch. It's a good idea to get it done. But
Mayor, council, one thing I'll just make, Tom Kirkman, street superintendent. Whenever you park in an area without adequate room anyway, you're now impeding the lane of traffic. So there's not adequate room for parking there anyway.
But go ahead.
Well, that section, I agree. It seems like a no-brainer that nobody would want to park right there. But the section between Jerome and Chubbuck Road, where there's the gravel, that would be the section that I would think people. I mean, I see people parking there all the time. So
right, and that's why it's been extended to Chubbuck Road, so that can encompass that as well. During the Keith Urban concert that was just up there, we had people parked on both sides of the gravel.
Yeah,
they weren't obstructing traffic at all. But
so should we just change it to Jerome?
I think we.
No, I think yours to Chubbuck is the best.
Because again, I question: does the Pocatello Police have jurisdiction to cite anybody on the west side of the road?
The boundary line isn't exactly the center line. It kind of bounces in and out. It's pretty confusing up there where it actually is and isn't up there. So
it would be good to just have the county added in. I think that's a good idea. So let's talk to the county and have them see if we can't get them to add that into the thing.
Because I'm just clarifying that for Councilman Moore in case he wants something else.
Oh, I'm taking notes, trust me.
So I don't know, I mean, could we even say to make it to Chubbuck Road? Because if it's not in the city limits.
It is.
Well, the east side.
The east side is.
The east side is in the city limits. The west side is not. So.
So I think this covers us, and then we can get with the county. And
I think so.
Okay.
If there were to be a
Councilman Brown.
problem
That's a good
there,
catch.
though, we could certainly add some signs.
Yeah.
Like down by Perkins, I'm not sure if you've seen, there's 3 no parking signs there. People will park on Olympus and get out and go eat at Perkins, which is just crazy to me, but they do it. So if we did have a specific location.
People really park in the lane?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to get a driver's license.
They're not from
Yeah.
State code does.
They're outsiders, okay.
Well, and that's the question I had for Zach on that. Common sense says you wouldn't park there, but if we're not marking the curb and we're only putting it into the ordinance, how would a normal and ordinary citizen know that they're not supposed to park there if they're lacking that common sense?
There's a money-making proposition.
I don't know, I guess they get a ticket.
The state code says you're not supposed to park as to be a hazard. So if you don't have sufficient lane width to leave it's like a 10-foot, I believe, path, then when you got your driver's license, hopefully you learned that. Doubt everyone did, but the ticket is a great way to learn how to drive.
I think we'll do mass education a couple times.
Has that helped you?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Most of the streets that are no parking that aren't signed is pretty common sense that there's just not adequate room there. So. And that's why we try not to sign them anywhere we have to.
Sounds good. Okay.
All right. The next item is school zone speed limits. We want to add into the city code these two sentences. In the city code, it doesn't say from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. or when flashing. So we want to be able to enforce the from 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. 5:30 p.m. I can't read right now. And then what we're going to in the city is the the flashing signs. So when school's in session or there's kids crossing the streets, we want to those signs will flash, and so we want to add that into the code. We have been.
Yeah, we did get receive an email from Bart Reed, and he brought a couple of good points. He said that most of the kids are gone by 4 o'clock. Maybe we should shorten down that 5:30 limit. We just threw a 4:30 out there, thinking it may be a better limit. I think, Ruth, you mentioned that we have received complaints that time is so long and the kids are gone. So that's a proposed change, if that's something that we may change in our ordinance. And then the other one was when that's in effect, the 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Our ordinance says from the 4th Monday in August to June 15th. Last Monday in August. Well, this Monday, the Monday in August. Well, this year we don't start school doesn't start on the last Monday, so that doesn't work. And then to June 15th, they're out in May. So I thought we could put something in there that would say per the school district 25 schedule. They post it every year. It's a printed document. I picked them up yesterday, and so from the first to the last day of school, I think we'd have to work with legal and try to make sure that we do that appropriately.
And also with St. Anthony.
Do we have the flashing lights at all school zones?
No.
And what do they cost?
They run about $10,000.
Really?
For a pair. The solar style that we've been getting installed on projects and we've been installing. The wind flashing will help solve some of those issues.
Yeah.
We can program them by the school zone to allow, so it only flashes when people are there. We're currently kind of doing that now, so they won't flash over, say, the Christmas holiday. The ones we can program, the old style mechanical time clock ones still flash the whole time, but it gives us that flexibility, and it does shorten that day up.
And it makes people that have to drive through those every day
a lot happier.
Yeah, in your case, where you drive, if
Yeah,
you're
with the
only
flashers.
seeing it flashing when kids are actually going to be present, you're going to obey that sign a lot better. This is getting us in line more with the rest of the country. We do think, and Bart Reed was very supportive of it. We did the school zone study with BTPO 10, 12 years ago. This was one of the things that was recommended in that study. Council at that time adopted that study. So we've been working that way, but the ordinance has never been changed to reflect it.
Okay.
I should add too, on the solar flashers, we're thinking more along the lines of those will only be on our busier streets, our secondaries, our arterial Hispanic Highway. You're always going to have the residential streets like by Washington School. You'd probably just go with the blanket 7 to 5:30 or 7 to 4:30. It's just not enough traffic to justify that expense.
Okay.
All right. The next item is the reduction of the speed limit on Garfield Avenue from Gold to Bridger. That section currently reads 30 miles per hour. We did a traffic study on that and the speed study, and the 85th percentile for that road was 28 miles per hour, so it was a lot slower, or slower than the current speed limit is currently. So the speed study came back from BPTO, and they proposed a speed limit of 25 miles per hour, which is in line with all the other streets around Garfield. Garfield is the only one in Old Town to be 30 miles per hour. So we've received some letters from residents that say that 30 miles per hour is too fast and that they want it to be changed, and we are in agreement with that. So we want to reduce the speed on that road to either take off the side where the city code says if there's no signage, then it will be 25 miles per hour, or post a speed limit sign, whatever that Mike thinks is best fit for that road. So
we just have to remove the 30 mile per hour sign, right?
Some of them, there's extras in there that we would no longer need. The first ones at Gould and at Bridger where the changes were, we'll change those to 25 to make sure people know.
So you're saying the average speed is 28 miles per hour?
The 85th percentile. Why do we use the 85th percentile?
The 85th percentile is
statistically evaluated.
Yeah.
That's what after I checked.
Yeah, it's used because most people, the 85th percentile is where most people fall into the range of driving. You're going to have those people that drive slower, obviously, but there's people that drive faster. And the 85th percentile is right where I don't exactly know who set the standard, but it's right where they find the safest possible speed limit. If they go with the 50th percentile, people will be driving too slow, and then then people start running into the back of other people and just get mad. So that's why they go with the 85th percentiles, to keep the speed up to where most people drive.
So it's like statistically shown that has the least amount of accidents. Yeah. That's why we use the 85th percentile. So 85% of the people go that speed or lower.
So I guess my question is why? I mean, is Garfield got those deep curb or water crossings there at the intersections? It's like Pine Street, I guess.
I think Garfield was kind of a remnant of years gone by when I think Arthur and Maine were faster, and it just kind of got overlooked. that it didn't get lowered a long time ago. I don't think you can get to 30 on that road if you want to.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to try doing 30 on Pine Street either. But do we look at other streets in Pocatello on this 85th percentile of speed? I'm going to go to Hawthorne Avenue, which from basically Alameda Road to Quinn Road is, I think, 25 the whole length. And that, riding with police, I think the average stop we make is 36 miles an hour on it. So.
Yeah, speed limits are kind of volatile. You know, everybody's got a different take on what should be a posted speed limit. And so the speed studies are very comprehensive. They do take a lot of time.
Are we, it seems to me like sometimes though we're slower than what I see in other residential areas and other communities.
Chubbuck's 20.
Well, but I'm just saying that when I drive in other larger communities, that these tributaries are a little faster. It seems like we slow down more here than some of them. Is that just a perception?
No, that's true. I remember when we were doing that Alameda Jefferson traffic study that our consultants told us that in Pocatello we are more conservative. We're more conservative drivers, drive a little slower, more cautious than Boise does, and for sure Salt Lake. So that's just part of the way we are out here.
And if we're going to lower the Garfield, I think we ought to take a look at a turn lane at Custer and Arthur by the common sense, because that's one of the reasons it bottlenecks at that light because of people turning, and so you get backed up a whole block. People are turning onto Garfield to avoid all that traffic congestion. It's an alternative route because of that bottleneck. So I think we ought to look at a turn lane somehow there. I don't know if there's enough room, but I really think that would alleviate some of the congestion. Because you get somebody that wants to turn left onto Arthur, and you got somebody that wants to turn into common sense going the other way, and there's an impasse. And so I just think we ought to take a look there.
At Ridley's, right?
Yeah.
Ridley's and
that's actually one of our oldest signals in town. It's still a span wire signal.
Yeah.
And one of the concerns we have down there, as you know, signals are very expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be tough down there. We're probably going to have to acquire some right-of-way. It's pretty tight.
Well, I think where he's talking, though, is you've got somebody turning left. If they're headed west, they're turning left to go south on Arthur, and somebody that is going east has gone through the intersection already to turn left or north into common sense there, and maybe it's not.
They back the traffic up both ways. Nobody can go.
Maybe it's not a traffic light. Maybe it's looking at stopping that turn, that possible turn into
and we can look
common
at
sense.
Like we're saying, it's an older signal, and we'll have to see if it's got the capabilities.
But even a divider that kept them from turning immediately into common sense, made them wrap around to the alley, would alleviate some of that, because then one lane's going to clear so the other one can turn.
Yeah, I think we've all been trapped there.
I live up in that area, so I see it every day.
Right.
I just moved from there, and I'm glad I don't drive it every day. So there's currently not enough pavement width with the parking. If council would support removing the parking, we could do that. But every time you remove someone's parking, they're mad. We could certainly look into that. The signal that exists there today is not capable of, say, doing a protected left turn movement or detection.
And now we start talking about his neighborhood. I want to start talking about mine.
Well, hold on. We're talking about something that doesn't work anyway. To put a signal there so you can turn left onto Arthur, you can't turn left onto Arthur. And people are going past the signal to turn left into common sense. The problem is not the intersections turning. The problem is just past the intersection to turn into common sense.
Access into common sense.
Yeah,
maybe we can move it a little bit.
Maybe that needs to be moved somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's the intersection. You put a turning lane in there, you don't have room to put a turning lane in there.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that.
So we ought to look at something else.
I do think that's why people choose that as an alternative route over there.
We see that a lot during school as well, when Irving's getting out and you've got eastbound traffic, and you have one westbound person that wants to turn left, and you've got all that Irving traffic coming, and they'll stack all the way to Main right there.
Yeah.
That's me. My kids.
So there's a lot of issues at that intersection. Not just
Put in a
common
roundabout.
sense issues.
Yeah, roundabout, that won't confuse things.
All right. The next item is additions of 35-mile-an-hour speed limits to the city
Way
code.
to transition, by the way. Take
Yeah.
control.
Right now, Highland Boulevard and Kirkham Road are signed at 35 miles an hour, and they are not included in the city code 10.16.050. So we want to propose the addition to those the city code for those two roads. And along with that, the addition of a 45-mile speed limit for South Valley Road to the city code. It is signed at 45 miles an hour, but it is not included right now in section 10.16.060. So those two we want to add. And then the last item we have is the construction zone speed limit. We want to
There's Gary's flag.
we want to be able to regulate and lower the speed limit in construction zones. We currently do not have the capability to do that. So we want to add in the city code a section that says that the city engineer is allowed to reduce the speed limit temporarily while construction is being done on that road. Right now, we're doing construction at Highland Boulevard, and it is 25 miles an hour or 35 miles an hour up there, and that is while people are doing road work and stuff there, it is too fast for.
Well, that would limit the skateboarders and the bicyclists as well.
long borders.
Yeah, they're faster than cars.
So this would allow the police to regulate that and to write tickets with the regulatory black and white signs.
Is that the number you came up with, or is it?
That's just
It's a stock vote.
Oh, okay.
We're not proposing to do like the state does with an enhanced fine.
Okay.
No.
It'll just be the normal. This really came up a few years ago when the water department worked out on North Main, and it's 50.
Yeah.
So they wanted to post at 25. Well, you can't legally do that. So everything had to be orange and black, and motorists could drive 50 if they wanted to. That's just not safe. So we want to make it safer for everybody, motorists and crews. So we could drop those down on the busier streets. Highland, maybe drop it down during construction.
Good idea.
Okay.
And that is it. Take any questions if you have.
Good job, Zach.
Thank you.
I've got a picture of the city council on there.
I resemble that fact.
Which one of
Yeah,
us?
we have a question.
Which one
I,
of us is
I should have
that?
brought this up when we were talking about Olympus, but
Yeah.
I noticed a lot of people during the Keith Urban concert that were parking between Jerome and Chubbuck Road. That's on the east side, that section of dirt that's owned by the school district. They were driving up and over the curb and parking in there. So I'm just curious if you start ticketing people along that east side where they shouldn't be parking, if they'll maybe increase that. And I'm just curious, I don't know if there's a way to fix it, but do you think you need to extend a little bit up Jerome? I mean, maybe not the whole way, but make some of that a no parking also to get people out of the habit of right there near that corner. I'm just curious. I just was concerned about a lot of traffic going up and over the curb and damage to, I don't know.
And we just painted some yellow curb on Jerome because people were getting really close to the intersection. And we'll continue to monitor that, and if it becomes a problem, we'll go post some no parking signs up in there.
Okay.
Unfortunately, if they're gonna jump the curb and go on the school district,
Yeah.
not much we can do.
It's not illegal to drive over a curb, is it?
School district needs money, they get charged for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, but that's their property. I guess I need to control that.
Yeah.
But we'll continue to monitor.
Okay.
Super. Any other questions, council? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. We'll move on then to agenda item number 6, proposed city amendments, animal control. Richard Stewart, Animal Control Director, will present suggested changes to Pocatello Municipal Code 6.04, Animal Control, to implement 2 new sections to the code. The proposed changes are 1, implementation of dangerous animal registry, and 2, requiring individual cat licenses. An ordinance has been prepared based on the proposal for council action at a subsequent meeting. While you're handing that out, is there any changes to, we've talked before with the animal control, making it animal services opposed to animal control?
In that ordinance?
Yes.
No, I haven't actually thought about it. I would love for the change to just be animal services. That's what our name is. So that could be something that we can change with this.
Okay.
Just to make it all the same. Good morning, council. Good morning, mayor. I feel kind of lonely up here after the last group. Thank you. Today, I would like to propose 2 implementations of ordinance changes. One being the revision to our dangerous dog or dangerous animal code, which is 6.04.060, restraint and care of dangerous animals. The changes, we're actually looking to add a section, or not section, but a G and a H to that section of the code, which would add a registry for dangerous animals that have been deemed by the court to be dangerous. Really what that would do is it's going to be in our fee, it's already in the fee resolution for this year. And what that'll do is that's going to add a first year fee of $100, and each year after that, $50 to renew it. And that's to help cover the cost of the oversight of dangerous animals in the city. This really came about when I was noticing when I first got here that I had a lot of dangerous dogs running around in the city at large that really surprised me. And that worries me to see that happening. And I want to do our job, which our number 1 job is public safety for the citizens. And I would like better oversight from our department of those animals in the city. And I think by adding this registry in, we will be able to, every year, they're going to at least check in with us once a year. And then if we haven't heard from them, then we're going to go visit them and find out what changes, why they haven't registered with us. And it's also going to allow us to go, all right, the court ordered you to make sure your pet has a microchip, has been spayed or neutered. All those different restrictions that are actually in the code, we're checking and making sure that that has all been completed. And they can't get registered until they've completed that. And so it's going to provide better oversight so that we can be proactive versus reactive, which is what I say a lot, because there's nothing worse than, a dog that was deemed dangerous already getting out and then hurting somebody again, or hurting somebody else's domestic pet. Because at that point, that makes me go, we're doing something wrong. So we want to try to prevent that as much as possible. And so I want to have my officers go out there and check in, make sure that their pins are correct before they're able to register. And so that's the goal of this revision to the ordinance. Anybody have any questions?
Just for purposes of information, how many dangerous animal currently do we have in Pocatello? 56 is what I had said last time. I think we're up to 57 or 58 now. It might be just 57. But as we start to go through, the list of ones that are deemed dangerous, I'm sure we'll have some updates to, oh, I've given that animal away, which they're supposed to check in with us and let us know, so we will have a current and correct up-to-date list, because some of these people we probably haven't spoken to or seen in 5 years. That could be a good thing. That means they're doing the correct actions to follow the dangerous animal laws, or it could be a bad thing and their dog's just running around and we just haven't caught them yet. So. And this isn't, this is something that other states, statewide, have implemented. So Virginia, it's actually up on a website. Everybody knows the addresses of every dangerous animal in the state. So this isn't something that's abnormal.
Great. Okay. Super. Okay.
The next item that I have is actually adding a section called, which is 6.04.155, individual cat license required. What this would do is require cat licenses in the city of Pocatello, just like we do with dogs. We've set a price and it's in the fee resolution already, and we would actually use microchips for the tag number. So you wouldn't actually have a cat wearing a tag, because a lot of people will complain about having an animal or having their cat have to wear a collar or have a tag on because, cats don't like it, or it could be dangerous for the cat. So we've proposed for the microchip to be placed, which, in all honesty, is a better form of identification anyways. A collar can fall off. The microchip is there. The only thing that you'll see, and the technology has gotten a lot better, is the migration of the microchip, but we scan the whole body anyways. Even though there's a certain place that everybody puts a microchip, we scan the whole body just to make sure. But with that, it's really, I want to give you a stat, because this is really what has pushed this for me. And that stat is, over the last 3 months, I have taken in 312 dogs. I have taken in 629 cats over that same time period. That's double. We have a cat problem. And I don't think it's fair that only dog owners have to be required to pay a city license and not cat owners. And then on the flip side of that, the other thing is return to guardian. These are animals that have come into our shelter and have returned back to the owner. I've returned 125 dogs. I've only returned 18 cats.
That's what I was going to ask.
That's crazy. I mean, and what this will do is, by adding this microchip and doing the licenses, I hope to significantly increase that number that are returned to owners. And that's really the push of this for me, is to return cats to their owners. And I think part of the problem is a lot of people that have a cat, we only have a 3-day stray hold here. After that 3 days, it becomes the city's property. We adopt the cat out. It gets transferred out. And a lot of times, owners don't think to come to us in that 3-day period. They think, oh, the cat will come back. We'll see it in a week. And then it's somebody else's cat at that point. And so this will allow us, I mean, the cat might not even come into our shelter because all of my animal control officers have microchip scanners out in their trucks. They'll scan the cat. Oh, we've got a microchip. Let's take him back home. Don't even need to come into the shelter. And that would help us greatly if we could do that. And I would hope that the citizens would be happy about that too. So that's really my goal about that. I've given you, the second handout I gave you is kind of a pros and cons of microchipping. It's not necessarily specific to cats, but one of the arguments that I'm sure we'll hear is, is it going to hurt my cat? Is it going to cause cancer in my pet? And it talks about that in that handout. A lot of what it says in there, just not to read from it exactly, but a lot of the studies that you have on microchips in animals right now are being done with mice that are already in a cancer program or study. So a lot of the results, I don't know if you can necessarily say would correlate with that. It's mice that are already genetically made to be susceptible to cancer. And the Veterinary Medicine Association is quoted in there saying there's a very, very low risk. It talks about there's 2 dogs that have been shown to have gotten a tumor from it, and one of them they can't even prove that it was necessarily from the microchip. And then at the very end of it, it talks about seat belts and leashes have caused more injuries. So just to put it in perspective. So, but I'm sure that we will get some people that will talk about that. And it's kind of looking at the risk reward, and I feel the reward is a lot greater. It states in there that 10,000 animals a month are returned home because of microchips. So I would like to be a part of that with the cats.
In addition to returning them home, it lets us track animals that are chipped and know who should be let's say they chip their cat, pay their fee today, we pick the cat up 5 years from now, it's not paid, nothing's been paid on it. We should be able to go back and assess those people because that cat's been roaming and doing whatever. Mm-hmm. Is that part of this process? I mean,
it would definitely, they're microchipped, so unless they've transferred ownership to somebody else, we would have to look at how to prove that portion of it. It would at least give us a starting point. Hey, 5 years ago, this pet was licensed with you. Are you missing your cat? Yes, I lost it 5 years ago. Thank you. We'd be excited to have it back. Or it could be, oh, I gave that to my cousin's cousin who now owns it, and then I've got a number to them and I can call them. At least we have, it's not just, we don't have any clue. So it's definitely a great starting point that will help us succeed.
I think it's a great idea. We just got a neighborhood email yesterday that one of our neighbors' cat's been missing for a couple of days, and they want everybody to be on the lookout. It would make a lot of sense if this program was in place and they already knew it was chipped. It provides a lot of protection for the cat.
Exactly. I get a lot of calls about people that, I can think of 2 places that I've got my officers watching because even though you're not supposed to let your cat run at large in the city of Pocatello, it happens. And even though they're essentially breaking the law, doesn't mean I want something bad to happen to that cat. So I want to know where that cat is. And I've gotten 2 areas that we're watching that several people's cats are missing. They haven't come to my shelter, so it makes me wonder, where are they going? So I have concerns about that. And that will help me make sure that they haven't come to my shelter through different means if they're microchipped. If they, show up in a gutter, and they're microchipped, and hey, this was 20 miles away from where they actually lived, it makes me look, and it adds to the investigation and help us better serve the community.
It's a great idea. Councilwoman?
How is this going to affect you, I guess, administratively? I mean, if you're having to process all of these licenses, do you have mean, are there people that have the time to do this, or is this going to mean that you're going to need more staff to handle that, or how is that going to work?
We'll make time because I think it's that important. I will find ways, and luckily we have a good volunteer base, so we can get our volunteers to help out with that if need be. And they do with our dog licenses. Every year when it's time to renew, yes, we're swamped, and it's a full-on everybody working towards getting those licenses done. There's some things that with our new software that will speed that process up, and there's things that we can add with that software that could help out that situation. One of those being we could do an online licensing, which would allow people to actually put their information in and do it that way beforehand. So.
Well, the amount of time you mentioned, if one of your officers finds one in the field, they can identify and return it. You're saving a bunch of time and effort on each one of those.
And resources, because that means that we're not holding them for, however many days while it takes an owner to come in. We're just going straight there and be done with it. So.
Well, appreciate what you and the board does out there. On the chip and the license, so essentially you've got it split out. I guess if this was implemented, you just do a standard $25 fee or something.
So here, then this is the reason we split it out like that. Because normally our cost for just doing a microchip is $20 and with tax. If you purchased a license with a microchip, we would give you a discount for the microchip, so you could receive the microchip from us for $15, and then the license would be $5. If the animal already has a microchip, which is great, or they want to specifically go to their vet to get that microchip, because some people, I'd rather my vet do it, that's fine, and then they just have to pay the $5 for the license. So if they've already got a chip, they just pay the $5 for license. They just have to show proof of the chip, which we can do by scanning it.
And this kind of goes back to earlier questions. With that $5 renewal, I think there's ways, if we got the software, you could almost stagger it like the county does on registration renewals and just send out and they could mail it in or pay it online, I think. So it would be nice. So.
I mean, we've got it set right now where it's going to expire the same time as the dogs, but it's not saying that we can't change that up. I know I set for the dangerous animal registry, I set that at January 31st so that we didn't have to worry about all the licensing. It was more of a separate thing so that we could concentrate on. So we could do some different things or stagger it out, start sending out notices ahead of time for that.
Because I think in June it was 130 cats that came in. I don't know how many kittens you got in foster care right now.
Yeah.
It seems to be pretty.
I mean, we definitely are taking in more cats this year than we did last year and previous years. And it's a problem, and we need to come up with solutions. I think this will hopefully, it doesn't directly, well, in a way, it directly will affect those numbers. Hopefully that we won't see these animals come in. They'll just go directly back home. So in that aspect, it will help. But there's some other things that we need to start doing to hopefully help start lowering the amount of cats that we bring into the shelter. Because we've done several things, and we've had some huge successes with what we've done with our cats, but it's hard to keep up. It really is.
You cited here San Antonio. Are there any other places nearby that require cat licenses? And I guess the reason I ask is because I think there might be a lot of people that have an issue with this, and so I'm just curious, like if Chubbuck or somewhere was to also do it, then we could.
I don't know of any that are necessarily close to us. The reason I talked about San Antonio is because they had actually changed from using tags to microchips, which has increase their return to owner big time. I can find that information out for you and contact different areas and see where the closest places, where I came from, we had a cat license. And I think the number of cats that we take in a year definitely adds to the argument of why we should have one.
Well, and you know, there's a practical aspect to this too. We have such an urban interface with our community, and cats are predatory. And so what they do to birds and other things out there in the interface areas, feral cats are a big problem in a lot of places because they decimate game bird populations and songbird populations, and so there's a downside to this too in terms of how these cats impact the surrounding environment that we like.
And I think what the license will do also is, you know, there's some people's cats that aren't feral, but they might come across as feral when they come into our shelter because they're scared, they're freaked out. So if they're microchipped, they won't be confused as a feral cat. Because we might not be able to handle them, but maybe their owner, they're completely fine with. So I think that helps out as well. And you know, really, it's, you know, I'm not trying to attack the cat owners. I want their animals to get back to them. I mean, there's two sides to it. It helps us out, and I want to help them out. I've seen tons of people come into my shelter crying because they can't find their cat. And with only 18 in the last 3 months being returned to their owner, you know, you see that quite often. And so that's really one of the big reasons why we're doing this.
And I think I'm excited you're taking us in some of these directions. It seems like we've been kind of stalled when it comes to these issues, and I like where you're going, and I like the idea of changing the name of your department as well.
Other questions? I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, proposed amendments, use of alcohol beverage in city parks. Parks and Recreation staff will be present to review current policy and recommended revisions to current City Code 12.36.060 beer wine permits regarding the allowance of alcohol beverages in city parks.
Good morning, Mayor Blatt and council members. That revised chart, we were having a heck of a time getting with the Blackfoot folks, but they did get back to us this week. So the only difference is the Blackfoot information is included, and that's the only difference from your report. Mayor Blatt and council members, current Pocatello City Code states that groups or individuals can obtain a permit to consume beer and wine in conjunction with their activities at Lower Ross Park, Upper Ross Park, Raymond, and Bonneville Park. For these locations, staff is given authority to approve and issue permits administratively. When issuing these permits, it's made known to the permit holder that they will be responsible for ensuring that all persons consuming alcohol at their event are of legal age to do so, and that they are also responsible for the conduct of the attendees at their event. And should there be disruptive behavior or excessive noise, it may result in termination of their event. Applications for these type of permits that we can approve administratively, staff asks that they be submitted 5 days prior to the event as a standard rule, and we currently assess them a $50 fee for the beer wine permit. In addition to the current city code, the current city code states that alcohol may also be consumed in other parks when allowed by city council. In other words, when the council grants an exception request allowing alcohol in a facility other than those pre-approved select locations. And these types of requests, we ask that the requester submit that request 3 weeks prior to their event, so we have time. Now, if somebody comes in a couple days after and we can still meet the deadline, we try to accommodate them, but that's the general rule is 3 weeks prior. And as you guys are aware, each spring and summer, we receive many requests from park patrons for community-wide special events and general family events for exceptions to the city code, which in turn are brought forward to you for consideration. Due to these, I guess, the ongoing significant number of exception requests, staff was asked to review the current code and determine if any revisions were appropriate. Some key factors in staff's review were the proximity of the areas where alcohol is allowed to playground areas and children, the immediate proximity of areas where alcohol is allowed to surrounding homeowners, and also whether the areas typically permitted were the larger community parks or the more smaller neighborhood parks. In regards to alcohol exception requests that are received each year, the vast majority of those exception requests tend to be concentrated to Centennial Park, Sister City Park, OK Ward Park, Ammon, Alameda Parks, and the Fort Hall replica. When reviewing and comparing to surrounding cities, staff is comfortable with alcohol being permitted on an ongoing basis at these just mentioned popular and frequently requested locations for the following reasons. One, either the proximity of the pavilion area are not directly adjacent to the playground areas or homeowners at each location, or past council exceptions granted at those locations, they just haven't proven problematic in any way. In other words, there's not a history of complaints received or concerns raised by patrons of surrounding residents, nor are the parks being left in a state of disrepair or messiness. We're just not finding that. And lastly, many of the annual community-wide special event exception requests, which have a history of approval by council for the benefit of the community, are hosted at many of those popular locations. For these reasons, staff is recommending the gray highlighted revisions to current city code, section 12.36060, that are listed in your staff report. And a summary of those recommended revisions are: go ahead and add the select handful of those most popular locations and let those also be subject to administrative approval by staff. So that would include your Centennial, Sister City, OK Ward, Ammon, Alameda, and the Fort Hall replica. And then also specifically prohibit alcohol in play areas, prohibit glass containers at the parks, and then also include language that requests for location exceptions will no longer be considered. In other words, we're going to go ahead and permit alcohol, or this is the recommendation of staff, at these select locations in addition to your Ross Park, Raymond, and Bonneville, but no other exceptions will be considered. We've got another 20 plus parks and natural landscape areas that would not be included in this, and kind of looking at how we compare to other cities. Staff feels that the revised list would provide an acceptable and sufficient amount of facilities to meet the current and the long-term community needs in accommodating, kind of the wide variety of requests that we get from the community for private parties and special events. It's a good inventory of large community parks, smaller neighborhood parks, and gives them a good choice for their events. Now, a good recent example, I guess there's always going to be exceptions to the rule, and people are going to have compelling reasons. Council just approved an alcohol exception permit for Leadership Park, which we typically don't even permit, we do maintain. So I guess there's always going to be exceptions, and folks are going to find compelling reasons why they want to have their event at a facility other than one of these listed. But I really feel like we could draw a reasonable line in the sand. These are the facilities that we allow, and we're not going to consider exception requests. I think that relieves council of that kind of awkward burden on a meeting by meeting basis. So I think we compare well to what the surrounding cities are doing, and I did include a survey kind of the key questions. All of the cities allow alcohol in their parks. Pretty much all of them, with the exception of us and Idaho Falls, allow it at all of their park facilities. I don't think we want to go there. A lot of the parks, and especially the smaller neighborhood parks, are just not conducive and appropriate for alcohol. So I don't think we want to go that far, but I'm comfortable with the limited number and a $50 fee. Some charge, some don't charge. We haven't heard a bunch of squawking or complaining about that, so I feel like it's reasonable. It's been in place for many, many years, and a decent revenue source for us. We don't get a ton of these, but it is something. With that said, if council has any questions, again, the recommended revisions, which would need to be vetted by legal and then brought forward to you at a future meeting for further consideration, they are listed gray highlighted in your agenda item, and I'd be glad to try to answer any questions.
Okay, we've got one here and then here, so we've got Roger, thank you.
Constitution Park seems like a place that might be a good location to do this because it's fairly isolated, and it's got off-street parking and along a major thoroughfare. So personally, I would see Constitution Park being included in this. Okay. And I would see the rest of this, Scardino, the one up by Jefferson Elementary, those type of parks, I think we ought to just say, don't even apply.
Yeah, no exceptions.
No, yeah, I think we can streamline this, we can make it clear, we can give places people can plug in, but we also can give places they're just off limits. Right. And that's my own personal feeling.
That was the intent of this, but basically what we did is I had the office staff go back 2 years, and Constitution actually wasn't one of those parks that even had a request during the last 2 years. But I agree with you. It's a nice isolated location. It's got off-street parking, and you can have a control group there. And I can see that one. And if that way, if somebody requests or they want to know where they can go, I would put it there and just go with everything else the way it is.
Sure. John, I really appreciate the work that you and the staff have put together on this, because it has been occupying far more attention than it deserves. Idaho Falls charges a 3% sales fee there. Did we look at anything that might be an additional revenue generator for the city of Pocatello as it relates to this issue?
We haven't. There are some, typically they're not selling the alcohol, they just want to apply to have it. If they're selling it, like there's some special conditions, and actually the section just prior to this, 12.36050, which kind of cater more towards the city-sanctioned sports tournaments at select locations. If they were selling, of course they would have to go and have their license vetted through the police department and any Southeast Idaho Health Department requirements they would have to meet. We haven't, unless we have a specific agreement with them, like the 4 Golf. I'm not sure that we have the staff resources to track that, to even generate that revenue source. We don't have staff on site in any of our parks per se, unless they're maintaining or prepping a field prior to the activity. I just don't know how we would accomplish that without having somebody there to monitor it. So
it looks like Idaho Falls only allows licensed vendors to apply for a permit and get the permit, and so.
The other question I had, in the research that you did and the staff involvement, were there interviews with the police department to determine any challenges to people participation in disturbances?
No, we didn't seek that information. We strictly dealt with kind of our counterparts in the other cities that are administrating the permits. I can certainly have some return calls and check that, but nobody offered that with the exception of Blackfoot. I guess the police have access to their park reservation system, so I guess on a weekly basis, if they notice alcohol has been permitted, they'll add that to their patrol list and kind of stop by. But nobody offered any of that type of commentary, and that's why that's one of the reasons why I felt comfortable, recommending some of these parks, because I also am concerned with the proximity to some of the play areas. But if we specifically prohibit alcohol in the play areas at those locations where it's relative proximity, I think that's fairly strong. And then also just I've been here 2 summers now. We're just not getting complaints of unruly behavior and that type of thing, or the facilities being left in disrepair. I can't remember one receiving any. So history tells me that that's not really an issue. And we go over the regulations with them prior to issuing the permit, so everybody's on the same page going in.
We're paying a lot of attention to this, and I'm one who personally does not want more government intervention. And maybe it's not an issue that we even need to be majorly concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
I would be interested in the police report.
Sure. I'll check into that.
Thank you.
This side of the we've got a question.
Thank you. Thanks, John. As regarding to Councilman Bray's about Constitution Park, I don't think Constitution Park has a pavilion. I think most of these are attributed to or tied to pavilion availability. I think whether we decide to do that or not, it's not. But back to this issue that Councilman Johnson brought up regarding the sale. Now, I know the county with the event center just leaves it as an honor system with their vendor to remit that. There's no audit program, and that was my question: is do we look at separating out family events for consumption versus events for consumption with charging for the cost of it? And again, I think it's something we need to can look at. I don't think it's that difficult to just ask them to remit a percentage if we choose to do that.
We don't get into the percentages. If we're told that they are selling, that's kind of another permit fee that we tack on. It's an additional concession fee. So in addition to the alcohol fee, there would be a concession fee, and then we go to, is it a profit or nonprofit organization? So we do hit them for an additional fee. It's just not a percentage of their sales, and I'm not. The honor system, I guess we would have to rely on the honor system because we don't have the resources to monitor.
What's the concession fee?
It varies between groups, but it's generally in the $25 or $30 range.
And I personally think that covers all of that. I think it'd be really hard to get to a point where you're looking for some kind of a percentage of sales. It's pretty complicated.
We do, with the Four Golf is the prime example. They do run the snack facility over at NOP, and we've got a specific, legal vetted agreement with them that dictates percentages of sales, and they do a real good job of tracking. But, short of that, I think it would be challenging to try and monitor that.
I like the suggestions you've come up with. I think this, again, I agree with Jim. There haven't been a whole lot of trouble there, but I think this is where it always should have been. I think it should be in house to take care of that. Those kind of things shouldn't have to come to us. Not that it's difficult for us, but it's difficult for people trying to get through the process. Sure. I think this is another great improvement. Appreciate that.
Well, history tells us these are really the key locations that tend to host, all of the majority of the family gatherings and special events. And I just, council just you guys won't have to deal with this anymore. We can just handle it. So, if you're okay with these recommendations.
Sounds good, Councilwoman.
I would actually like to see us maybe expand past the list of what the most popular ones that you get requests for, because like you pointed out, there's some other places that would be okay and there's not a real concern. So I would maybe suggest that we could even extend, and whether you just sit down and look at a big list of all the parks and say, okay, this one, good idea for this reason, this one, probably never going to get a request for it, but let's just add it onto the list anyway, just so that it minimizes it further. That would be, I guess, my thought on that.
I'm okay with whatever you decide.
I like your list. I think that's the way it should be, and exactly. It's almost an absolute no beyond those.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds great. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. We'll move on to agenda item 8, council working lunch. Members of the council may choose to participate in a working lunch in the Paradise Conference Room to discuss general city topics. No formal action will be voted on. And it is a little early for lunch, but we'll still go back there because we do have some items to discuss. So,